Welcome back, Novello Nation, to another episode of the Aaron Novello podcast. We have with us the real estate millionaire maker, right? Somebody who's done 400 units in the last 12 months on his team, over 1,000 units in his brokerage, which he owns. And that's been over $1 billion in production, the one and only Mr. Rudy Kusuma. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with me here today.
Pleasure to be here, Aaron. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And, you know, it's interesting because my team, they saw you on another podcast and they really loved your energy and kind of the way that you think, which is really outside of the box for most agents. So what's interesting is prior to kind of jumping on off camera, you said to me that, which I find so fascinating, is that all of that production that we just talked about, you shared with me, there's no outbound prospecting, no cold calling. And it was something that you call like reverse prospecting, where you get, you know, the clients, whether it's buyers or sellers, to reach out to you. So I think what you have a gift for and what your superpower is thinking outside the box and specifically marketing. If you could, for a moment, briefly kind of share with us how you got into real estate and what that journey was like for you prior to, you know, turning into the $1 billion producer that you are.
Well, I was just like anybody, right? Couldn't get a job. So, well, actually, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was in college. I was supposed to teach graduate school. My major was mathematics, University of Wisconsin. I'm supposed to teach graduate school here in LA. My dream job was to work in NASA. But then I came across this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And in the book, Robert Kiyosaki said the number one skill in life, it's sales, right? How to influence, persuade people. So I was like, wow, nobody in my family. In my family, we never talk about business. We never talk about money. We never talk about sales, right? Those are all taboo. So when I read that book, I dropped out of school. I dropped out of my graduate school and basically get in sales. I was selling door to door, and one of my clients is a real estate brokerage. And he is the one that basically convinced me to get into real estate. Took him about 2 years. Finally got my real estate license in 2007. But the first time I got my license, Aaron, I realized that I just got married, get a brand new baby. I realized everything is on me. I have to do everything all by myself. So when I was in the hospital trying to be with my wife, right? My first baby born, I couldn't even be with them because I have to serve I remember the clients calling me just trying to open a Supra lockbox because the agents don't know how to open the lockbox, right? And the business stops. Like, I'm not against cold calling, prospecting, door knocking. The challenge is that when you stop, when you get sick, or when you are in hospital like me, just trying to be with my baby, then the whole operation shut down, right? Because the business is me.
What I think is very interesting about that is, you know, I shared with you that I think your superpower is like thinking outside of the box and kind of questioning things. And right from the jump, I mean, you were in graduate school studying to be some sort of, I imagine, engineer, and you had a dream job to be at NASA. So you had a lot of probably cultural pressure, familial pressure, you know, to do that. And when you read that book, it struck you, and instantaneously you were like, okay, I gotta do something different. And I know that takes a tremendous amount of courage. So then you got into real estate, and you noticed very quickly that, like, wow, I'm selling time for money. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that I don't have some time freedom, and I'd like to be able to spend time with family and things of that nature. So how did that lead to you start to kind of question or analyze like the training or the systems that usually are kind of, you know, taught to agents, and cause you to say, like, you know what, like, I think that there's a different way to do this?
Yeah, so I did everything what my broker asked me to do, right? So they asked me to all this door knocking thousands of homes. So I did all that, and then I was looking for a different way. I came across the number one Remax agent back then in the world, Craig Proctor. So my logic is this. Find somebody. I think Tony Robbins says it's called modeling, right? Modeling means find somebody who have done it and just model their behavior. If you take the actions, then you're going to get the results. Whatever you want in life, somebody else have done it. Like there is no need to reinvent the wheels. So back then I was like, okay, who has successfully sell homes and still like have a normal life. So I just so that's when I hooked up with the number one agents in Remax
So,
because
and then I'm wondering though, like this idea of like, as you started to do that, and I know for a lot of agents, some hesitation in doing that is that usually it requires expenditure of capital. You usually have to hire people. And what I see is that, 65% of us, in America anyway, they live paycheck to paycheck. So because of that, it affects thinking and they think they have to do everything themselves. And I'm aware that it requires out of the box thinking to be like, okay, well, if I spend some money here and if I hire some people here, that'll create more time. So for you, was there any friction there where when once you realized like when you started to model people, you're like, wow, okay, they're spending money in advertising and spending money in marketing and maybe have hired some people. Was there hesitation to do that or zero hesitation where you're like, yep, that's
well,
what they're doing, I'm gonna do it?
yeah, I mean, well, I had no money. So well, I remember before I get into real estate, when I say sales, to be more transparent with you, I was selling stuff in a swap meet. I'm making about my profit was $50 a week, right? But when I make that profit, $50 a week, I'm just selling like knickknacks, you know. When I make when that, so I'm making about $200 in profit a month. But what I do with that money, I invest in my personal education. Like for example, I use the money to buy Zig Ziglar CDs, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, all those guys. This is maybe old time, but my point is you invest in yourself. So when I first get started, Aaron, I had no money, but the lack of money, I mean, more money is not going to solve your money problem. So more money is not going to solve your money problem. I make you let me make you a case point. Let's say you come across somebody who's struggling, lack of money, and suddenly I give you $1 million cash. Trust me, the reason they have no money, there's a problem. So if you put more money into that problem or into that business, then you just magnify the problems. So when I first get started, the concept of reverse prospecting. Essentially, what I did is this. Literally, what I did, I open up. I'm hosting a cash flow games, so I have people come into my office. Remember, I have no customers. I have nothing, right? I just have a desire and the understanding of instead of me chasing the customers, have the customers come to me. So I do that 3 times a week. So every week I have 60 people come to my office playing the cash flow game. At the end of the cash flow games, I ask a simple question. Hey, how many of you guys want to do this in real life? So usually out of every week, I pick up about 2, 3 brand new clients. So if you do the math, in a very short period of time, I have an overflow of clients. I have more clients than I can serve. But remember, Aaron, this is back in 2007. I get my license. 2008, the whole economy crashed. Everybody in real estate quit the business. So what happened is that, think about it. I have way too many clients. Everybody else is quitting the business, so accidentally I stumble up. I partner up with the other agents. Hey, let's if we partner up together, I'll give you my clients and we split 50-50 at the close of escrow. So that's how my team kind of getting evolved. And then I have a short sale listing back in 2000 December 2007. My first listing is a short sale listing because nobody else want to take short sale back then. So I was the like I'm a new agent, I have nothing to do. I take a short sale listing. Most real estate agents, when they take a listing, they take the list. The intent is to sell the listing. But if you've been in business for more than a couple of weeks, the listing, no matter what you do, if your pricing is right, it's sold. Right. So instead of trying to sell the listing, which I know the listing is already sold, it's a short sale, 800,000 home listed for 500,000. We have multiple offer first day. So instead of focusing on trying to sell that listing, the focus is how can we leverage that one listing to generate more listings. So instantly, as a brand new agent with no money, with nothing, but it's just a concept and understanding on how to leverage one deal to generate more deals.
And I love that because I think that a lot of people, particularly nowadays, like this idea of team, and I don't even think most people really understand what that means. And they feel like they're compelled to do that. And I personally believe that like team building should come the way that you did it, which is organically, where you have so many leads that like, you actually need people to help you. And that's really the way that you did it. The other thing I wrote down, which I think is interesting, is that I think people imagine that like it takes money to make money, but it takes courage to make money. And the courage is whether it's knocking on doors, hosting a cash flow game. I have no idea who's going to show up, if they're going to think I'm stupid or dumb or like whatever. So it just took courage to do that. And it actually causes you to be more resourceful, right? To use the resources that you have. And then the other thing I wrote down, which is very interesting, is like figuring out a way to serve others. So you were like, all right, well, this cash flow thing has made a meaningful impact, like exposure to Kiyosaki's mental maps, whether it be Rich Dad Poor Dad, or there's another one, the Cash Flow Quadrant, which is an awesome book to understand, and then the game. And it's interesting that you said that because I arranged cash flow games when I was in college with my kind of fraternity brothers or people around me, because I'm like, man, like this is so interesting to me, where you're serving a community and then it's like, oh, by the way, I also do this. So it's like give, then ask, which I think most people, they approach it like ask. And that's why they, have like friction, right? So now in terms of thinking outside the box, what I think is really interesting is that in your mind, you're thinking, I think most agents think like, okay, I took the listing, I'm going to sell it. You're thinking like, all right, well, how can I utilize that piece of data? Because I really do believe that it's data. It's how can I leverage this data to get more data and to get more
Yeah.
clients, right? So in your mind, you're trying to multiply each one, not thinking like, okay, I got one and I'm good. It's like, no, how can I turn that one into 3 or 4 or 5? So can you talk about a little bit about the strategies and the thinking outside the box that you use to cause it to equal more than one?
Yeah, I think first, like you said, Aaron, it's the concept, right? It's the mind shift. Like if you just focusing on well, first we need to be honest with ourselves because if you are honest, most real estate agents, Aaron, if you ask them why are you doing that, the answer is I'm doing it to please my clients. Well, you are doing it for the wrong motives because you already know that listing is going to sell, so you are doing it just to please, just trying to prove, right? So first you need to be secure with your own identity. Like you don't need to prove because if Aaron hired me to sell his house and I need to show him that I'm working, then the whole agenda is all twisted, right? So right now, so we need to be clear. The reason Aaron hired me because I already have a database of over 60,000 buyers in my database that's looking to buy a house. So when Aaron hired me, I already have the buyers. I already have offers for his home. Instead of when Aaron go to my competitors, they're trying to get a CMA. They don't have a buyers. They're looking to advertise your home, looking for buyers for your home. So the paradigm is already changed. We already have the offers. That's why now these cash buyers, all these the technology are taking advantage of our industry because our industry is so archaic, right? The reason the iBuyers business are booming is because they just go straight to the point. They're telling the consumers, you want to sell your home? I have an offer. The real estate agents is you want to sell your home. I don't have a buyers. I don't have an offers. Hire me. I'm going to advertise your home looking for buyers. But the consumer is very smart. Like, why should I hire you just to advertise my home? As technology becoming more advanced, the moment I put my listings into the MLS, it gets automatically syndicated to over 15,000 websites.
That as time progresses, a solo agent won't be able to compete because their value proposition is becoming less valuable. So I wrote down a few things which I think are very interesting is that I wrote down the word intent. And what I wrote down is like, what a lot of agents do because of that mindset shift is they are performing, let's say an open house or these things with the intention on trying to justify commission. And what you're doing it is with the intention on actually adding more value to yourself and your organization because the value proposition is, not only can I take pictures and market the property effectively, and I have people in place to provide you with a good experience, our main value proposition is we actually have buyers and we can actually bring them. Where most agents, if you were to ask them, one of the common objections if you're prospecting is like, hey, do you have a buyer for my home, Rudy? And it's like, well, I appreciate you asking, and I'm not going to insult your intelligence, tell you I have a buyer in my back pocket, because if I did, or if any of the other agents did, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd already have an offer already. What's most important is that when you're speaking to an agent, they know exactly what to do to go out and find a buyer. So that's how you try to overcome that. But what you're doing is you're being like, they're like, hey, do you have a buyer? You're like, yeah. As a matter of fact, we have 60,000 buyers. And when I show up to the listing appointment, I'm actually going to bring offers. I'm curious, is that what you're looking for in an agent that you hire for the job?
Yeah, you are like right on the spot. So you don't need to create like fake value, create a real value, right? Because how do you make more money? Like there's only three ways to grow and develop your real estate business. Number one, you close more deals, increase the number of transactions. Number two, you make more money on each transaction. But how do you make more money on each transaction? By adding value. If you are a real estate agent and you don't do professional photography and home staging and you don't advertise the home in 1,000 different websites, the customer is going to laugh at you. It's actually expected. The consumer now has a very high they expect you to do that.
All business is really volume or margin, and that's it. And I think what's happening is that as the net gets compressed because the cost of sale is going up, whether it's with referral fees or like other things or all the tech that we need in order to, do things in volume, that as the net gets compressed, the game is moving towards volume. And it's also moving towards like figuring out ways to preserve margin. And the way you preserve margin is by adding value. I remember being at a business mastery with Tony Robbins, and he brought a technologist on stage. And he talked about this process, and it's the process that you're describing. And he gave the example. Me and you have been on planet Earth long enough to remember that when we went through toll booths, there used to be a human there. And they used to count the change, and they would hand you the change, and then you go through. And then what happened is there was a human, and then there was a change machine that would count the change. Then what happened is there was a change machine, and then there was a transponder. And then what happened is now there's just a transponder. And what they said is that in every industry, whether it's real estate or banking, that's happening at warp speed. So when I saw, I was like, wow, that's very accurate. And we have to move from just being transactionary to being fiduciary, like solving people's problems for them and really helping them at a high level. And I would propose, and I'd be interested to see your thoughts on it, I think it's twofold. I think it's tangible value. I also think it's like perceived value, because technology has been training us on how to make decisions about who gets money. So I know, like, if me and my wife don't know and this is in your realm of thinking outside the box, like making it easy for people to find you. So I know, like, if me and my wife or you and your family are going to go out to dinner and we don't know where to go, we don't call somebody to ask them. The first thing we do is we pick this up. And then we go to a particular site, whether we Google it or we go to Yelp. We look at reviews, we look at pictures, maybe a video. Then we might pick up the phone. One of two things happen. Then we pick up the phone, we ask some questions. If they don't say anything stupid, they get the check. Or I just make a decision, and like, that's where we're going, and they get the check. So I guess I'm curious, like, you recognize this and you see the world that we're in. I think the mental map that the majority of people, not just agents, but people in general, they're walking around with a mental map of the world that doesn't exist anymore. So my question to you is being that you see this and you think outside the box, like, what are some of the things that you're doing? Because I know you're adding tremendous value, like tangible, real value that allows you to double end deals more. It's more income. It preserves margin. Plus you're doing volume. So that means you're just like crushing the game. What are you doing to make it easy for consumers to find you?
Yeah, you before this, you touched very good point on Google. Right now, the cost to generate leads becoming more expensive. I'm on radio, I'm on billboards. When I say more expensive, it's twofold, Aaron. Number one, the medium itself becoming more expensive. Number one. To make it even worse, on top of it, there's many more competitors, or the marketplace becoming more noisy. So in the past, it takes me 2 phone calls from billboards to close one deal. Now, if it takes me 4 phone calls from a billboard to close one deal, that means that means my expense just like quadruple, right? Does it make sense when I say more expensive? So yes. Now, people always ask, you are the number one team with Remax in California. So like when I was with Remax, like 400 to 500 homes a year, the number one team in Remax. Why did you leave, right? I mean, nothing wrong with Remax. I love Remax, right? They treat us with red carpet and stuff like that. The challenge is this: as the marketplace becoming noisy, how can we how can we shortcut that? So before your home sold guaranteed or I'll buy it is our unique selling proposition. So we need to go back a little bit. You mentioned Tony Robbins, business mastery, right? I know, but the unique selling proposition, you need to have a USP. What is your USP? Your USP, unique selling proposition. How are you different than any one of your competitors? Why should I sell my home with you over and above thousands of other agents, or I could have just do a for sale by owners? So that's a unique selling proposition. What's different about you?
This is interesting. So what I wrote down a few things. One, I wrote down that marketers ruin everything. And what I mean by that is once they realize that something works, everybody pours in and then it doesn't work as well anymore, which is like the natural evolution of things. So you notice that like, wow, like all of those other places, when we talked about the cost of sale going up, it's getting more noisy. So the lead gen is costing more in those places. And you mentioned too, which I think is interesting about brokerages. And I think that's why there's a massive disruption there, because as the cost of sale goes up, traditionally they don't add a lot of value. They're kind of like the agents that we were talking about, where they're all kind of doing the same thing, just with different t-shirts. So if you can minimize expenses and cut them down to like a cap of like $16,000, that actually frees up more capital to be able to do the things that we're talking about. And that's why I think you see like disruption in that area. And then, what's also interesting is that you're noticing that attention and figuring out ways to get either free or inexpensive attention is what the move is. And what it makes me think about, I don't know if you're familiar with Grant Cardone, but I saw him at an event and he showed something on a screen, which was interesting. And what he said is like, look, I'm not doing this for like ego. I just want to demonstrate something to you. And he showed his income over like a 10-year time frame. And it was a chart, and it went up. But then what he did is he overlaid his hits on Google. And you know what's crazy, Rudy? They were in lockstep. And that was wild to me. Like that kind of blew my mind, where it was like, wow, like that's so interesting, is that traffic equals customers.
Yes, like Grant, I was in Grant Cardone event when the guy jumped off the airplane, not airplane, but like helicopter or something, right? But the whole point is grab the attention, and then because if people don't even know you exist, then it doesn't matter. So yeah, Google now today, this thing is keep on evolving, right? Aaron, you've been in business for a while. This thing keep on evolving, but today Google is like the Bible. Like whatever Google say about you, basically, even us, this meeting here, we never met. So I think we met, I don't even know how we met, right? So somebody from your team came across us on Google. But this happening all the time. This is why we need to master these SEO games. Google, it's called leverage, right? So again, I want to make sure I'm not knocking down. I'm not like top down on cold calling, prospecting, door knocking. It's just the problem with that methodology is there is no leverage. You know what I mean?
Where do you see things continuing to progress? From my perspective, like I see that it'll either be where you'll have like a team like yours who really understands the game, and you'll get your unfair share, or you'll work for a team like that, where the time of like agents who do 10, 15 deals a year, like they're not going to be able to compete with speed, because they don't have the technology to be able to compete. They won't be able to compete with value adds because they don't have the resources to be able to do that. Like, how do you see that shaking out as time progresses?
We believe here at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, the future in real estate is either you build your own team or you are a part of a team. Because your competition is no longer the solo agent. Your competition is either multi-billion dollars technology company or a mega team that has $1 million in advertising budget.
What I just wrote down, which was like pretty eye-opening to me, it's like, well, how can you're either going to compete with the Zillows of the world, the Redfins, the Home Lights, like these platforms that are getting in the way, of us and consumers, and charge them referral fees, who have multiple million, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million budgets for advertising. Or you're going to compete with a local team who's the hyper local expert who has $1 million a year in advertising budget. And what's true is, to your point, I don't care how much rah-rah you get. I don't care how many motivation tapes you watch. I don't care what you do to try to rev yourself up, or affirmations. Like you're not going to be able to compete with that. You're just not.
You're running out of time, basically. It's time, because time is limited. We all have 24 hours a day. You have to sleep. So the most you can work, even if you don't sleep, is like 20 hours in a day.
I read this book recently called the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and he's this interesting dude. But he said something that really it really made my brain explode for a second, where he talked about the different forms of leverage. And you mentioned those three forms, and he said the same thing, but just perhaps a little bit differently. He said there's a leverage of labor, which is the lowest form of leverage, because labor, they get tired, they get sick, they quit, like they get mad, like whatever, right? But it's better than having no leverage. And then there's a leverage of capital, which is superior because money works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, doesn't get sick, that sort of thing, doesn't get mad, doesn't leave. And that's superior to the leverage of labor. And then there's the leverage of having a product or a service that costs very little money to duplicate or replicate once it's been created. And that would be like software. And that would also be like media and content, because that is not bound by geographic location. It works all around the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, versus the leverage of capital. Like if I put it in an apartment building, it works 24 hours, but only in the apartment building. But what he said, and here's what's very interesting, and that leads to this point where you said it's either this or this, is that we don't live in a world of haves and have-nots. We don't live in a world of rich and poor. We live in a world of people who have leverage and people who don't. That was like an explosion in my brain, because I immediately went to people in my life, whether it's loved ones or family members, who don't have those three forms of leverage, and their life is increasingly becoming more challenging and difficult.
Yeah, even money, even saving money. Right, saving money, there is no leverage. So now with inflation, you actually losing when you save money. But going back to the last point on this, so today we touch about how to increase number of transactions, how to make more money each transaction. The last one about the leverage, the products that you mentioned, Aaron, how to gain clients for life. We actually have a product that our clients. Can you imagine our clients actually pay us a subscription, $1,000 a year, for example, to be our VIP clients? This is post-closing. This is after close of escrow to have access to, for example, Will Make You Rich. So when I say that, so for example, Aaron, you just bought your first home here in LA. Congratulations, everybody happy. And then as our clients for life, you enroll in our VIP program as our VIP clients. Can you imagine? You buy homes from us once a year, investment properties. See, most real estate agents only focus on this first home. If you're focused only on the first home, when's the next time they're going to buy another primary home? Every 7 years. So hopefully that inspire everybody.
Yeah, man. Listen, I love it so much. I think people are going to get so much value from our time together. So, and again, I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate the way your brain works, because you see things out of the box, and it's evident in the results that you're producing for yourself, for your clients, for your agents. So, if people want to find you, if they got referrals, if they want to connect with you in some way, where can they find you?
Yeah, go to www.yourhomesoldguaranteed.com. Yourhomesoldguaranteed.com, right? You Google yourhomesoldguaranteed.com. It's there. Get in touch. If you are here in Los Angeles, stop by our office. We'll show everything I'm telling you now, I'm sharing today. It's happening here in live, our team system.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, Rudy is the absolute real deal. He's an awesome dude. Spend some time with him, get to know him, reach out to him as a client, reach out to him if you got referrals, because they'll treat your clients well. So again, man, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward to connecting soon. And I call her specifically for a very specific reason. I need to understand this thing called Instagram. I'm asking her questions like, hey sis, what is a story? And how is that different than a post?